a high reliability organization and follow some of the mandates that we do in the chemical industry. So that was the approach. We needed a cultural journey. We sure didn't need any more technology. We had great technology and it worked well, but we didn't have the human culture to support that. So the OECD Environmental Committee across International Committee came up with a whole set of how to become a high reliability organization. So we jumped on that right away. I also, in the quality world where I was at that time, looked at benchmarking ourselves against companies that really knew how to deal with disaster properly. And so the US Nuclear Navy came to top of mind. They were the ones that knew how to handle things. They had 60 years of nuclear propulsion in their submarines and in their aircraft carriers, not a single incident that they couldn't address. So they had certain practices that they used in nuclear energy. Also Lockheed Martin, who are makers of the F-35 aircraft, they got talking to them a bit. They also make the Patriot missile that is used, I think, in probably the Ukraine and the Golden Dome in Israel now. And they push a button, there's a missile coming across, they push a button, the Patriot missile comes out and takes out the missile. Can you imagine pushing the button and the Patriot missile didn't fire, or it was a dud and it just hit the missile and bounced off the missile? So these are the kind of technology these guys have never fail, and it's all based on a lot of cultural stuff. In fact, it was interesting, Lockheed Martin was talking to them once about counterfeit electronics. They found that counterfeit electronics had come into their industry and they were putting them into their Patriot missiles and things, and they're very unreliable. They're not designed for I could talk for another presentations about counterfeit electronics. But anyway, it's very interesting. We found, after that, we found counterfeit electronics inside our smart pigs. So that was something I dealt with just as I was retiring. It was just bizarre, it blew me away. You didn't even know they existed. But anyway, we had counterfeit electronics in there. And then, of course, the cultural thing about, so we had quality begins with me. We had these Cue Me stickers. Everybody had one on their computer. They walked around the company with these things. That's how we approach things. So again, what we were trying to do here, according to the chemical companies, everybody in the company needed to have a chronic sense of unease and lack any sense of complacency. Certainly, human error is complacency, and that's what we saw big time in that Marshall, Michigan failure. And we also need to make strong responses to weak signals. Don't accept a higher level of false alarm. So if we have a weak signal, we think something's wrong, we shut everything down and analyze the hell out of it, right? And that's a false alarm. We lose business, we lose production during that whole purpose, but we need to have a much higher tolerance of having false alarms. So we had so many false alarms when we did this and get people to support that, so they just didn't say, because that's what happened in Marshall, Michigan. They had all these indicators that something was going wrong. No one believed them, no one moved on, and they just got different people involved. Well, don't worry about that, don't worry about that, right? And there we have, a disaster. And came close to taking down Enbridge, and yeah, that's how that works. So what did we do there? So let me take you back to my values moment here. So we talked about this values moment, and this is about the time I read this book. And I talked to a lot of the executives and things. I was heading up the quality department for Enbridge at the time, talking to them about, Enbridge has a really, really, really good personal safety habit. We have lost time injuries like the lowest in the industry. We have everything is just perfect. So I said to everybody, I said at a conference in Banff, actually it was, I said, what we need to do is we need to figure out some way to leverage our personal safety habit into a quality habit. So just what I said before about changing to strength training from a jogging thing, I just said to everybody as simple as this. I said, we have a cue when we have a personal safety issue, slips, trips, and falls, or someone has their shoelaces untied, walking down the hall, we stop everybody and we deal with that. The guy goes, oh, don't talk about my shoelaces, But that's the culture that we had for personal safety. So it was very, very easy to change that culture over to a quality incident. So we saw a quality incident, we saw a widget that didn't quite look right. We saw a flange that was leaking. We saw something. We treated it very seriously, went through the same routine, which was investigation and root cause analysis, which we've been doing all the time for personal safety. We ignored a lot of the quality issues because it didn't cause an issue. We caught it in time, done. You know? But there's a reason why that flange started to leak. We didn't just deal with the flange leak. There's a reason why the flange started to leak. So we went right back to the very beginning and traced that whole path, life of that flange gasket. Why did that flange gasket leak? So started to deal with all these investigations and analysis. And the reward was simple. We stopped having all these quality issues and errors. Right from I started doing this with the new projects and constructions group. Started running the quality department there. And then the last 5 years of my career, they transferred me over to pipeline integrity. And we started to roll that out in the lower part of the bathtub curve and the wear-outs phase. So it's all about getting it done right the first time. So just on that note, I was going to say that Enbridge belongs to an association called Canadian Energy Pipeline Association. I think there's over 21 different pipelines in Canada that belong to that. All their contractors and suppliers also belong to that. And I became quite active in that foundation. We used to meet every couple months, and we deal with companies across the pipeline industry. And so how did we do? Here's a picture of me accepting an award on behalf of the SEPA Foundation in 2017 for quality on behalf of all the SEPA Foundation members, which there's hundreds of them. We were nominated for the highest quality in Canada, and nice enough to me accept the award there. You'll see down with the innovation one, Rose in Canada. It's a smart pig supplier. They got an innovation award that year for a new crack tool that they had, a new type of smart pig that did a better job of identifying cracks in the pipeline. So very active group, and I was very proud to get that. So that's the story of how I helped turn Enbridge around and improve that culture. Cross my fingers, we haven't had any leaks like that were caused by human error. And with that, I want to know if I have any more time.
About 5 more minutes or so.
Okay. Well, I can, yeah, okay. I've got another 20-minute presentation on new pipelines and stuff, but I won't do that. Maybe we'll open up to some questions then if we've got 5 minutes.
We're quite interested in the new pipeline part.
Yeah. I can start down that.
Questions? Well,
Can we ask that he carry on with the pipeline piece? Because I don't know, I'm very interested. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Needs to be consensus
How
here.
realistic is it that we're going to have more pipelines built across Canada? In your opinion?
Oh, it's going to happen. I'm biased, of course. Like I might share my
But
biases.
seriously, from your background,
Yeah.
all things considered, what's happening?
I think we're going to get into some export pipelines, and we have to get an oil export pipeline. We just got an amazing gas conduit to the west coast through the Coastal GasLink. I can talk about that. TransCanada put an amazing 40-inch pipeline to LNG Canada. Awesome. We don't have anything like that for oil.
Timeline?
Timeline for.
You're at best.
Yeah. Well, I would say, okay, so right now, as I talk about the presentation, is the only big player in oil pipelines in Canada is Enbridge. Used to be TransCanada were there, but they got out of the dark side. They got out of the oil business, and they spun off their Keystone business into what's called a new company called Southbow. They're very, very small. They could never back a oil pipeline parallel to the Coastal GasLink or gas pipeline now. Trans Mountain is the one that just built their pipeline. They looped it into Vancouver. The problem with that is the port in Vancouver, they can't get any large ships in to load oil. A lot of the ships that go into Vancouver, if they fit the port, it's not really safe to go across the ocean. they come down the coast of California and they send oil to California and places, but they do, so that one does leave the States and go across the ocean, but it's not high volume stuff, so.
What about the other direction?
The other direction, the oil comes out on the west coast. Okay, so this is North American Sedimentary Basin. That's the one we're familiar with. It goes right through Alberta here. The red stuff is kind of depleted oil and gas fields. They're near population bases, and they're depleted because they're near these large population bases. So what all the pipelines that need to be built in North America, it's all about getting oil and gas from the frontier areas and taking it to the population bases, because as you see in the red here, they do a little bit of fracking now, which has kind of helped those red areas, but that's still very short term. Future basins, there's one Hibernia off the coast of Newfoundland there. It's very expensive, offshore rigs. There is something in the news here recently about an LNG plant proposed for Newfoundland for another formation even out further in the ocean, 400 kilometers out. Lots of money invested in that for an unproven reserve. You look at the question marks on these things. No one's really drilled enough to know what they are. There's another question mark off the coast of Nova Scotia, which is Sable Island. It's just a gas field. And yeah, so your question, this is North America. And